Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today I want to start another series. Yeah, I know I've got a lot of them going now, but variety is the spice of life. In case you're unfamiliar or just need a gentle reminder, I have the most detailed series, the one I'm probably best known for, where I dive into insane levels of detail on a particular subject or item within the Halo universe. I have the Lore and Theory series, where I discuss various aspects of the lore or various prominent theories that cross my mind. I have the Cartographer series, where myself and Dashi Jinx, often joined by guests, play through every level of every Halo game, and basically do an anti-speedrun, diving into the lore and looking at things that people generally miss when they're going through the levels. I have the Armory series, where I explore each weapon of the Halo universe and give it a dedicated video and teardown. I have the Project John 117 series, where we look at the entire military career of the Master Chief while simultaneously using fan art, renders, videos, music and creations from the community to fully explore Master Chief's story. And I have the Classified Materials playlist, where I go through every insert into Dr. Halsey's diary, where each page is voiced by a talented voice actor, Kat Peterson, in the voice of Halsey, and I explore the lore of each insert. And in that same spirit, today I boot up the Halo Mythos series. This will be an episodic series read-through of every page of Halo Mythos, and a full exploration of the history of the Halo universe, which arguably would be a great primer for anybody who's new to the Halo universe and wants to whet their appetite for the deep, rich and immersive lore that the Halo universe contains. So with nothing more to say, I give you episode 1 of the Halo Mythos series. The Forerunner Legacy. The earliest records of civilization in the Milky Way speak of the precursors. These godlike beings are believed to have created other sentient races before departing the galaxy, leaving behind only faint traces of their existence scattered across distant worlds. Long after the precursors' exodus, where knowledge of their kind had nearly passed out of memory, one of the races they created, the Forerunners, managed to achieve extraordinary things on their own, including interstellar travel through a dimension known as slipspace, and even the ability to create artificial worlds. The Forerunners' way of life revolved around a philosophy inherited from the precursors. This was known as the Mantle of Responsibility. They believed that the galaxy, and specifically life in all its forms, must be protected by the most advanced of sentient species. Those who bore the mantle were charged with governing and caring for all life in the galaxy. But such power made the Forerunners arrogant. The Forerunners' pride would not go unchecked. They would soon be judged by the Precursors, who did not approve of their brash claim to the mantle. The Precursors planned to wipe out the Forerunner race, strip the mantle from them, and give it to another species deemed worthy. The Forerunners discovered this harrowing information on a fortuitous expedition to the Greater Magellanic Cloud, a neighbouring galaxy also known as Path Chthona, where they encountered their creators. The Forerunner leadership was determined to prevent this fate. They struck at the Precursors with the largest military campaign ever witnessed. Only a fraction of their warriors returned, and for millennia, the outcome of the conflict was kept a secret. This was not the last the Forerunners would hear of the Precursors. Their makers had left something behind, a dreadful creature known as the Primordial. Ancient humans, another of the races created by the Precursors, recovered this creature from a small moon in a distant arm of the Milky Way, alive, but in deep hibernation. What the humans did not know was that the Primordial was, in fact, the last of the Precursors, evolved and mutated in order to survive the vast passage of time, and to exact vengeance on those who had destroyed its kind. After the extermination of the Precursors, the Forerunners dominated the galaxy for millions of years, attaining technological superiority over all others, including ancient humankind. Their galaxy-spanning authority and power would eventually clash with the humans when an ancient enemy emerged from the darkness outside the Milky Way. The Forerunner Empire was known as the Accumen, and at its peak was comprised of approximately 3 million habitable worlds. The centerpiece of their empire was the capital, an immense and majestic artificial world which the Forerunners called Mythos. At the center of Forerunner culture, meanwhile, was the Domain, a vast, immaterial database where all history, knowledge, and even life experiences were stored. The nature and origin of the Domain was a mystery to the Forerunners, though some believed that it had been left behind by the Precursors. Forerunners were divided into a variety of castes or rates, which defined their role in society. A combination of genetic engineering and biochemical manipulation gave each rate a distinctive appearance, and promotion was often accompanied by a physical mutation. Outside the borders of the Accumen, two species, humanity and the Sanshayum, had already expanded well beyond their own respective cradle worlds, establishing colonies across their parts of the galaxy. Humans had evolved on Earth, which the Forerunners called Erd Tyrene, while the Sanshayum had sprung up on Janjur Quorm, both lush and fertile planets. Eventually, these two species came in contact with each other and formed an alliance, centered on a world called Charum Hakkor. It blossomed and grew at a remarkable pace. the long peace would not last forever. A mysterious, ravenous parasite known as the Flood emerged on human and Sanshayum worlds, forcing them into a desperate fight against annihilation. Insidious in design, the Flood began as virulent but seemingly harmless spores. The spores eventually began targeting sentient species, completely taking over their minds and bodies and mutating them into horrifically malformed creatures that were capable of directly infecting others. It consumed its prey with such speed and ferocity that entire worlds and civilizations were brought to ruin in mere days. If the parasite could not be contained, it would lead to the transformation of all sentient life into the Flood. At the height of the war against the Flood, humans and the Sanshayum brought their military forces together under the leadership of a human named Fourth Hencho. This master tactician was given the title Lord of Admirals. Although both species fought bravely for years, the Flood spread seemed unstoppable, and Fourth Hencho spearheaded desperate efforts to contain the enemy. Without sentient beings to infect, the Flood could not expand. Fourth Hencho therefore ordered the destruction of neighbouring Forerunner worlds. This firebreak strategy was not only ethically dubious, but also risky. Destroying worlds in the path of the Flood's advance would eventually rouse the Forerunner war machine from its slumber. Tragically, the Forerunners were unaware of the human struggle against the Flood. To them, the destruction of their worlds was an unprovoked atrocity. They marshalled an enormous fleet in order to put an end to humanity's rampage. Leading the might of the Forerunner forces was the esteemed military commander Shadow of Sundered Star, known to most simply as the Didact. Both the Didact and his wife, the Librarian, would come to play key roles in the Forerunners' engagement with the human species, ultimately setting the stage for a far greater struggle. The Forerunners struck worlds with overwhelming firepower. The humans and their Sanshayum allies were soon forced back to a handful of sites which had remained free of the Flood. After decades of war, the Didact launched a final attack against Charum Hakkor, last of the human strongholds. The long siege would last 3 years and exhaust all that remained of Fourth Hencho's once vast military. In the end, however, it was a secret deal between the Forerunners and the Sanshayum that ultimately sealed the fate of humankind. The Sanshayum reluctantly agreed to subjugation and quarantine rather than extinction. They betrayed their alliance with the humans and allowed the security of Charum Hakkor to be breached. Shortly after, the Didact forced Fourth Hencho's surrender, bringing an end to the brutal conflict. Only after the war did the Forerunners learn that humanity was also engaged in a struggle against the Flood. At some point during the war, the parasite mysteriously vanished, presumably fleeing into the outer reaches of the galaxy. This left the Forerunners with grave questions. Even after the Didact and his warriors had thoroughly crushed the human forces at Charum Hakkor, the Forerunners wavered on whether to completely purge their enemies from the galaxy, especially given that most believed the sudden departure of the Flood had somehow been caused by the humans. Ultimately, in order to uphold the principles of the Mantle, the Council sentenced humanity to be devolved, reduced to a primitive state with little knowledge of their former glory, and landlocked back onto their native world, Tyrene. However, Fourth Hencho, along with many other humans stationed on Charum Hakkor, were subjected to the Composer a powerful Forerunner technology that transformed living beings into raw data. The Forerunners had designed the composer as a way to cheat disease and death, copying their essences into younger bodies. This process, however, was never perfected. Attempts to integrate these composed essences into new bodies only resulted in disturbing abominations. In the light of this, the Forerunners had, for the most part, abandoned this effort until the technology could be more refined. Despite this limitation, the Forerunners surgically employed a network of composers to draw out the essences of humans on Charum Hakkor. These essences would be locked away to be analysed and studied, as the Forerunners hoped to determine if the humans had discovered a cure to the Flood. The Librarian, meanwhile, secretly integrated some of these essences into devolved humans on Erd Tyrene. Leaving their species to evolve on their own world might reveal the cure over time and aid the Forerunners, were the Flood ever to return to the Milky Way. The Didact's elite Promethean warriors assaulted Charum Hakkor for 3 years with little success. Without the Sanshyam treachery, the deadlock might have remained indefinitely due to the planet's unique defences. Charum Hakkor was believed to be an artificial precursor hubworld. The planet had been constructed using neural physical techniques millions of years before the war. This mysterious technology had been mastered by the precursors, allowing them to create vast structures, even machines, capable of moving entire worlds. Charum Hakkor itself boasted a colossal armory, orbital arches, and immense cable-like mechanisms called star roads.